On a chilly night in early winter, the air in the room was warm and cozy, filled with the sweet fragrance of pink lilies. The thin blanket was halfway off, and their clothes were half undone, but Ding Lecky insisted on telling her husband a story. Zhu Heng couldn't help but laugh. How about telling a more down-to-earth story to liven things up? Ding Lecky pretended to be serious as she extended her arms to block his advances, carefully shifting to the side of the bed any further and she would have fallen off. With only a wall lamp illuminating the room, she wore a white nightgown, her figure graceful in the dim light. Yet, she casually grabbed a pillow and placed it between them. "Do you want me to fetch another bowl of water?" Zhu Heng teased. "Is our Labao so reserved?" Ding Lecky sighed involuntarily. At this point, being reserved was not an option. She reached out to cover his mouth. Still smiling, he lightly bit her finger, saying, "Then tell your story well, and don't stop until I fall asleep." Finally, she couldn't resist his teasing and burst into laughter, pinching his nose and playfully scolding, "Why are you so annoying?" Zhu Heng threw away the pillow separating them and pulled his wife into his arms. Unfortunately, her story wasn't very interesting, and she told it dryly, even yawning midway through. Seemingly infected by her lack of enthusiasm, Zhu Heng gently tapped his forehead against hers, whispering, "With our heads together, we have nothing to worry about. Sleep now, my dear Sisyphus." Yes, Ding Lecky had told Zhu Heng a rather stale Greek myth. Sisyphus was punished by the gods for his transgressions, condemned to push a huge rock up a hill only for it to roll back down every time he neared the summit. Thus, he endlessly repeated this task. This story seemed to waste the beauty of the evening, but in life, there are inevitably obstacles and peaks to overcome. Who isn't a Sisyphus in their own way? Only after she fell asleep did Zhu Heng carefully remove his arm, place her head on the pillow, and cover her with the blanket. He had noticed something was off with his wife before dinner. As soon as she came back, she sat at the table, silently eating the pomegranate he had peeled for her in advance. Zhu Heng washed and chopped the vegetables, opened the gas stove, and turned to his wife, saying, "You should go back to the room. I need to cook." Ding Lecky, mouth full of pomegranate seeds, asked, "Why are there only soft-seeded pomegranates and no seedless ones?" Zhu Heng chuckled, "Silly, what you're swallowing is actually the seed coat of the pomegranate. If there were no seeds for cultivation, where would the seed coat come from? What would you eat, the peel?" Ding Lecky looked up at him, still chewing on pomegranate seeds, wanting to say something but remaining silent. The frying pan heated up, and the vegetable oil began to smoke lightly. Squinting, Zhu Heng calmly placed the chopped meat into the pan, stirring it a few times to evenly heat and brown it before adding the vegetables. Amidst the enthusiastic duet of the range hood and the frying pan, Zhu Heng glanced at her. "I came back late today and couldn't buy the Black Forest cake from the store you like. I went to another one. You'll have to make do." "Okay," Ding Lecky replied, still eating her pomegranate. "Don't eat fruit now, Labao. Dinner is almost ready." Zhu Heng looked at her with some concern, not necessarily to convey his thoughts, but simply wanting to talk to her. Ding Lecky got up and headed towards the living room, then turned back to smile at him. "The pomegranate is so sweet. Thank you, honey." Late at night, Zhu Heng breathed a sigh of relief, waves of tenderness washing over him. He placed his hand on his wife's abdomen and muttered in his sleep after a while, "Labao, is our pomegranate tree about to bear fruit?" Ding Lecky and Zhu Heng's marriage didn't receive blessings from either of their families. One winter afternoon a year ago, they both skipped work on a gloomy day. Zhu Heng parked the car in front of the bank where Ding Lecky worked. He honked the horn twice and waited for 3 minutes before seeing her rush out, not even bothering to zip up her wide-down jacket properly. The temperature inside the car was just right. Ding Lecky's cheeks were flushed pink, her eyes sparkling as she raised a small fist at Zhu Heng. "Let's go." Zhu Heng smiled. "Let's go." It was a small city, and from the police station where he worked to the bank where she worked, and then to their destination, the Civil Affairs Bureau, it wouldn't take more than 40 minutes without traffic. There were no queues this afternoon, watching as their thin marriage certificates were stamped heavily. Ding Lecky didn't forget to take out 2 boxes of wedding candies from her bag and place them on the desk of the staff. Zhu Heng casually put the 2 marriage certificates into her bag, saying, "You keep them. Now, even I belong to you." In front of outsiders, Ding Lecky blushed. The smiling middle-aged female clerk looked even more kind-hearted as she laughed. "You two are really eye-catching, just like big stars." As they walked out, Ding Lecky sighed. "So kind-looking, so sweet-spoken. I wonder whose mom she is." Zhu Heng put his arm around her shoulder, smiling. "Maybe she says that to every new couple. Did you take it seriously?" Ding Lecky, feeling indignant, pulled out the still warm marriage certificates from her bag. "I also think we look particularly good in this photo." "Very good looking. Very good looking," Zhu Heng said, caressing her head and planting a light kiss on her forehead. "Wife, happy marriage." Ding Lecky tilted her head back, her eyes smiling. She hugged his waist, both of them wearing down jackets, one black and one white, like 2 clumsy yet happy bears. They didn't even have a wedding. A few close friends, colleagues, and old classmates set up 4 or 5 tables, and after a meal, they dispersed. Good news doesn't travel far, but bad news does. Most of the time, it's just an unspoken understanding, constrained by the special circumstances, with no one asking or mentioning. It wasn't without regrets. At night, Ding Lecky came out of the shower to find Zhu Heng lying on the bed, still in his clothes, using a pillow to cover his face. She wanted to take the pillow away, but he wouldn't let go, his voice muffled. "Le Bao, give me some time." Ding Lecky's eye sockets were burning. She got up and left the bed, giving him some time to collect himself. She deliberately elongated her tone. "Okay, then I'll go blow dry my hair." While she was blow drying her hair, Zhu Heng changed into his pajamas. She went to the kitchen to change the water for the roses and heard the sound of water coming from the bathroom. That night, they held each other tightly under the covers for a long time, without saying a word. Later, she kissed the corner of his mouth, her voice tinged with a laugh. "Big fool, on our wedding night, are we not going to consummate the marriage?" "Little fool, what do you think?" Zhu Heng laughed but sighed again. "Le Bao, I'm sorry. I don't want to keep hearing you say this, nagging like an old man. I want you to love me." Outside the window, snow was falling, tiny snowflakes tapping against the glass like ice crystals. The street lamp emitted a warm yellow light, and a cat from somewhere leaped over the wall, leaving behind a long, plaintive meow. They lived in the depths of an alley, in a 3-story building built in the 1990s, slightly elevated. One had to climb a dozen or so cement steps to push open the weathered black iron gate. The owners of the building were an elderly couple who had moved to the provincial capital 2 years ago to help their children with childcare. Coincidentally, one of Zhu Heng's colleagues was acquainted with them. A couple of phone calls later, they not only solved their housing problem with a minimal rent, but also made the elderly couple happy that their old house had someone to look after it. Zhu Heng and Ding Lecky had the right to use the east side apartment on the 3rd floor and the entire courtyard. Before moving in, several young men from Zhu Heng's unit came over, cleaning the house from top to bottom, even clearing the dried grass from between the bricks in the courtyard. Ding Lecky, wearing a floral apron and yellow plastic gloves, was ready to work, but she was overshadowed by the others. She stood behind the crowd, genuinely smiling with her hands held together. As they rearranged the furniture, Zhu Heng would occasionally ask her, "Le Bao, is this arrangement okay?" Ding Lecky always smiled before he even finished speaking. "It's great." Zhu Heng smiled too, his nose tingling with laughter. He knew that this silly girl, Ding Lecky, as long as she was with him, even if they lived in a doghouse, she would still smile up at him. Why wouldn't he treat her well? Moreover, he loved her so much. It had been more than a year since they got married, and he had poured all his love and cherish for her into the details of their daily lives. How many big events does an ordinary person have in their lifetime? If heaven was willing to bundle health, safety, and lifelong happiness together and send it to them, it would already be considered generous and fortunate. Ding Leqi seemed to have a low threshold for happiness, making it easier for her to find satisfaction and joy in daily life. Her longing for life was for warm sunshine, fragrant fruits and vegetables, a loving partner by her side, and tender affection. Almost every morning, they would leave together. She would stand on the steps, waiting for him to lock the courtyard gate securely. Her work ended earlier than his most of the time. In the evening, after 4 stops, the bus would reach the alley entrance. She would walk back home through the alley, and by then, all the neighbors she met along the way had become acquaintances, exchanging greetings before reaching the doorstep. Ding Leqi would go upstairs, change her clothes and shoes, go to the kitchen to wash pots and rice, and turn on the rice cooker. When the weather was nice, she would skip rope in the courtyard, hearing the roaring of cars as they climbed the hill. Then the sound of Zhu Heng parking, turning off the engine, followed by the sound of him opening and closing the car door. He would run up the steps 2 at a time, carrying fruits and vegetables in his hands. She would meet him halfway, and he would reach out and touch her forehead, smiling, "Look at all this sweat." He would hold her hand and lead her upstairs, asking, "Guess what we're having for dinner tonight?" Because the alley was quite a distance away, Zhu Heng was responsible for most of the household shopping. He didn't let her carry things that far. Back upstairs, he would wash up and change clothes, while she washed and prepared the ingredients in the kitchen. Then he would come over to cook, making the kitchen his domain. She would either chat with him for a while or go take a shower first. After dinner, she washed the dishes while he took a shower. Then, she would go in to do laundry, and by the time she finished hanging up the clothes and tidying up the bathroom, he had probably brewed tea, cut fruit, and the projector showed the movie waiting to be played. They were like an enthusiastic old couple, talking about everything, understanding each other without words, and embracing each other every night as they fell asleep. In the 2nd month after marriage, Ding Leqi's mother, Ding Li, came to visit once. It was the weekend, and Ding Li, carrying 2 large shopping bags, arrived in front of her daughter out of breath. Yet, without looking up at her daughter, she only said, "So many twists and turns, living so far away." Ding Leqi smiled, but her eyes turned red. "Mom, are you cold?" Ding Li didn't answer. She placed the things in her hands on the ground, and the plastic shopping bags rustled in the cold wind. Without looking at Ding Leqi's face, she buttoned up her coat and walked towards the door. "You go upstairs quickly. I'm going back." She didn't dare to look at her daughter's face, smiling yet filled with grievances. What's the point of crying with 2 big teary faces? But Ding Leqi grabbed her mother's coat and called out softly and tremblingly, "Mom!" "What, Mom? How old are you?" Tears streamed down Ding Li's face, and she turned around. Her tone softened. "Is your salary enough for both of you? Is he treating you well?" Ding Leqi nodded repeatedly but couldn't say anything else. She called out again, "Mom?" Ding Li patted her on the head. "Don't cry. Go back. Don't be afraid. Mom is here." Ding Leqi didn't let go. She held onto her mother's coat and walked down the frost-covered steps. Ding Li broke free from her grasp. "Be obedient. It's cold. Go back." Ding Leqi's voice was low. "Mom, I'll come home for Chinese New Year. Wait for me." "Okay, Mom will wait for you and cook your favorite dishes." Ding Li forced a smile, patted her daughter's cheek, and turned to leave. Despite tears streaming down her face, Ding Li didn't wipe them away, because she knew her daughter was still standing at the door, watching her leave. What did her daughter do wrong again? When they sat on the sofa together, her daughter's head resting on her mother's shoulder, softly and sweetly telling her that she had fallen in love with someone. How could she have imagined the impending hurt from the grievances of elders? For many years, Ding Li rarely brought her daughter back to her hometown. She thought her daughter's secret of birth could be hidden for years like Amber. But unfortunately, the person her daughter fell in love with turned out to be the son of her former best friend. Her daughter had always been obedient. From childhood to adulthood, she urged her to study hard, and she excelled. She required her to come home before 10 o'clock at night, and she never crossed the line. She asked her to come back to take the bank exam, and she succeeded. When her daughter was in her sophomore year of college, she dated a boyfriend from Qinghai. She only expressed some dissatisfaction, and her daughter broke up with him. Ding Li didn't expect her daughter's rebellion to come so suddenly at the age of 25. Perhaps this wasn't surprising after all. The genes were incredibly strong, and the mother-daughter bloodline was connected. Her daughter's firm determination was no different from her own at that age. The only difference might be who they encountered. Was she afraid? Maybe not. After experiencing various worldly affairs, Ding Li soberly understood that loving someone was only because of loving oneself. Compared to herself, her daughter was more independent and outstanding. So if she wanted to love, why be afraid? But Ding Li felt heartache. Her beautiful daughter, without a wedding dress, without a diamond ring, without a champagne tower, without the noisy blessings, quietly got married like that. She felt heartache. It was more painful than lying trembling alone on the delivery bed all those years ago. Ding Leki never knew who her father was. Her mother never mentioned his name, only saying that he had passed away a long time ago. She never uttered a bad word about him, instead praising him as an outstanding person. Her mother was beautiful, and even after middle age, her former charm could still be seen. Ding Leki knew from a young age that there would be men trying to court her mother. But her mother always said, except for Wuxian, there are no other clouds. She was simply not interested. She didn't need anyone to live with. She ran a business selling car beauty and accessories, and she could handle the material life of herself and her daughter well enough. In the second month of Ding Leki's work at the bank, she met Zhu Heng. At that time, Zhu Heng accompanied colleagues to handle a mortgage loan, and Ding Leki was the one who served them. She was focused and serious when writing, holding the pen tightly like a primary school student. Her eyebrows were dark, her eyelashes long, and a brown mole hid within the folds of her double eyelids, appearing and disappearing intermittently. His gaze lingered on her for a bit too long. A colleague nudged him with his elbow, teasing, "Didn't your teachers teach you not to stare at things up close for too long? Do you need to look into the distance to adjust your lens?" Zhu Heng felt a bit embarrassed. He didn't respond but blushed quietly. When the colleague went to the bank again, he just tapped Zhu Heng's shoulder with the folder in his hand, and Zhu Heng obediently got up and followed. That's how he became familiar with Ding Leki. When the colleagues finished the mortgage procedures, Zhu Heng was at a loss for a reason to go to the bank again when they received a case. Ding Leki's boss, a middle-aged man wearing gold-rimmed glasses and looking polite and gentle, turned out to be a habitual domestic violence offender. His most recent act of violence had caused his wife's retinas to detach, resulting in blindness. He even dared to resist arrest and ended up being beaten by Zhu Heng and others. As they left, Ding Leki held a thermos cup and leaned against the wall to make way for them. Zhu Heng walked behind her, not knowing what he was thinking. When he met her shocked and astonished gaze, he actually reached out and patted her shoulder. His steps didn't stop. His heart was beating hard, excited, and flustered, just like when he attended shooting class for the first time. That night, he made his first phone call to her. He asked her, "Did I scare you?" Ding Leki blurted out, "You're so fierce." Zhu Heng laughed. "I won't be fierce to you. How about I treat you to dinner? Consider it my apology." With every first experience, things became natural afterward. When they went out alone for the third time, Zhu Heng confessed his feelings. It was windy that day, blowing up the golden ginkgo leaves all over the ground, also blowing Zhu Heng's words of "Will you be my girlfriend" into fragments. Ding Leki didn't speak. She quietly watched the dancing leaves, making Zhu Heng almost despair. Later, he swallowed his embarrassment and said, "I seem to have messed up. Can I try again?" Ding Leki smiled. "No, it's windy, and I'm afraid I misheard." She poked his upper arm gently with her finger, her gaze clear and a bit mischievous. "If I refuse, will you hit me?" "I was a bit rash that day. Scared you?" Zhu Heng smiled, his eyes filled with the brightness and shyness of a big boy. He said, "It's okay. If you don't know me well enough yet, we can take it slow." Ding Leki smiled. tilting her face up slightly. "You looked very handsome that day, like a hero in a movie." "Oh my, please don't flatter me so much." Zhu Heng felt embarrassed. He raised a hand to cover his face. "So, have you agreed to be my girlfriend?" She shook her head gently but smiled. "Didn't you just say take it slow?" In fact, Zhu Heng could easily use his work convenience to learn about the blank space in Ding Leqi's family relationship regarding her father. But he didn't. He kept it simple. He liked her. From the moment he saw her, he felt that he liked her. She stood there so clean and quiet, wearing a dark blue work jacket and a white shirt, yet firmly crashing into his heart. In his understanding, liking someone meant joy, contentment, and accepting everything related to the other person. The relationship between Zhu Heng and Ding Leqi quickly escalated, hindered by her mother's rule of being home before 10 o'clock at night that had persisted for over 10 years. Every time they finished their date, they would have a hard time parting ways downstairs at Ding Leqi's house. One night, as Ding Leqi was about to get off the car, Zhu Heng insisted on not letting her go. Just as they were joking around, someone knocked on the car window. It was Ding Leqi's mother, Ding Li. Her smile was polite but thin, as she invited Zhu Heng to come inside. It was already 10 o'clock at night, and Zhu Heng felt even more embarrassed. He politely declined. "Let's visit another day, Auntie." Ding Li's smile faded instantly. She said, "I have something to tell you both." Obviously, Ding Li had made a detailed investigation into Zhu Heng's family situation. Sitting on the sofa at home, she simply confirmed the names and occupations of Zhu Heng's parents, then sighed lightly. She looked at Zhu Heng and said softly, "My name is Ding Li, and I know your mother, Qin Lan. It's best for you to get her consent before dating Ding Leqi. It's good for everyone." Zhu Heng was stunned. He hadn't expected family background to become an obstacle to their relationship. His family background was good. His father's business was doing well. His personality was tolerant and easygoing. And his mother worked in education, proud and strict. However, old grudges resurfaced. At the dinner table, Zhu Heng hesitated to bring it up, while his mother, Qin Lan, remained silent. She pushed the rice in her bowl with her chopsticks for a long time before speaking softly. "This girl, you young people can be friends, but marriage is out of the question. She's a bastard child. If there's such a daughter-in-law in the family, where can I and your father put our faces?" Zhu Heng's face immediately turned red. "What do you mean by being friends? Am I so frivolous? I'm serious about love. I'm going for marriage." "Are you getting cocky? I said no, so it's no." Qin Lan slammed the chopsticks on the table heavily. She looked at her son and asked, word by word, "Do you know what a bastard child is? It's a child born out of wedlock, and may even have an unknown background." Zhu Heng stood up abruptly. "I don't need you to teach me. You come back here." Qin Lan stood up and shouted at his retreating back, "I don't allow it. I don't agree." Zhu Heng's steps halted in place. Seeing him stop, his mother's tone softened slightly. "If the top beam is not straight, the bottom ones will go crooked, son. Can a pretty face feed you? You'll suffer sooner or later." "Who's going to suffer?" he said helplessly. "Mom, you haven't even met Ding Leqi. Where do you get these opinions from? Just because I like her, you want to slander her?" Similar conversations happened every few days over the next 2 months. Zhu Heng's patience was finally worn out, and he asked his mother, "If I weren't your son, would I still get scolded?" His mother's slap landed squarely on his cheek, ringing in his ears. She even threw the teacup in her hand to the ground, shattering it into pieces. "Get out of here!" she yelled. And Zhu Heng really left. Meanwhile, Ding Leqi also went through 2 painful months. Every day after work, Ding Li would wait at the entrance of her workplace. She would pick up and drop off her daughter, check her phone call records and WeChat messages, inspect her bag and clothes, and pay abnormal attention to her menstrual cycle. On the evening when Zhu Heng left from home, he called her, "I want to see you." Ding Leqi changed her clothes to prepare to go out, but her mother blocked the door. She said, "Darling, there are so many cute and handsome guys. Why do you have to like him? In this city, except for Qin Lan, no one knows that you're the illegitimate child of your mother. Zhu Heng had a falling out with his mother, and I can't ignore him." Ding Leki's tears suddenly burst out. She took a few steps back, leaning against the windowsill. "Mom, please, let me go. Do you believe I'll jump from here?" This was the 7th floor. Ding Li was suddenly frightened. Her legs softened instantly. She reached out and leaned against the wall to make way for her daughter, her voice so low that it was barely audible. "Come back soon." Ding Li stood by the window and saw her daughter running and throwing herself into the arms of the young man. They hugged each other like that for a long time, without letting go. At 9:50 at night, Ding Leki came back. She stood by her mother's bed and said softly, "I'm not just infatuated. Even if I am, I don't think it's shameful. I can support myself. I can take responsibility for myself. And I'm with him because I like him. Mom, let him deal with his family matters. But in our family, can you please not make it difficult for me?" Ding Li turned her face, her voice hoarse. "Don't hate me. I'm just afraid you'll end up like me." Ding Leki took off her coat, lay down on the bed, and hugged her mother. "Don't worry, I won't." At first, Qin Lan's indulgence towards Zhu Heng was filled with wishful thinking. She thought, how many young people nowadays aren't playful? But as time went by, Zhu Heng rarely came home, and even when he did, he spoke very little. Zhu Heng's rented house had been visited by his father once, and it was said that there were girls' sports shoes on the shoe rack at the entrance, and a white dress hanging on the balcony. One evening, after the rain cleared, Qin Lan and her colleagues happened to pass by, and they saw Zhu Heng's car parked at the bank entrance. Ding Leki ran out from the door, her smile bright and charming. There was water on the roadside, and Zhu Heng stood under the steps, actually reaching out his arms and carrying her over the puddle right on the main road. Qin Lan felt like a lump was stuck in her throat. She almost didn't sleep all night. The next morning, she went to see Ding Li. Old friends turned enemies. Qin Lan's tone was very aggressive, and her attitude was somewhat arrogant. She told Ding Li to control her daughter. Ding Li sneered, "Can you control your own son?" Qin Lan tilted her head slightly, her eyes disdainful. "Why would I need to control him? At least boys won't come back to their mother's house pregnant, right?" Qin Lan also mentioned the name of a man. She said, "Ding Leki's father. Is it him? Although he's wealthy and has status now, a bastard child is still a bastard child, unfit for Zhu Heng. You tell her, don't keep pestering my son." Ding Li's face turned pale. She raised her hand and slapped Qin Lan across the face. "You can look down on me, but why look down on my daughter?" Qin Lan refused to be outdone, screamed, and pounced on Ding Li. On a sunny morning, the two of them tore into each other in the house, saying all sorts of harsh and hurtful words. Coincidentally, there happened to be police officers downstairs handling a theft case, and they followed the sound and found their way to the house. When Zhu Heng and Ding Leki rushed back, the house was in a mess. The two mothers had disheveled hair, bloodshot eyes, and neighbors were peeking and whispering in the hallway. In the living room, the four of them, mother and son, mother and daughter, sat there solemnly for a long time without anyone speaking. Later, Ding Leki stood up and sat down beside her mother. She didn't raise her head, just whispered, "Zhu Heng, let's break up." "I won't." Zhu Heng looked at his own mother. His tone was calm, but there was a hint of weariness. He said, "She's not pestering me. It's me. Mom, if you must scold someone for being shameless, scold me." He leaned over and grabbed Ding Leki's wrist. "You come with me." "I won't." Her eyes were red, and her lips trembled before tears fell. "Take your mom and leave, please." Zhu Heng didn't let go. He lowered his head and took out his phone from his pocket. His voice trembled as he answered the call. "Dad, come quickly and take Mom away. She's about to drive me to death." Zhu Heng moved back home. As long as he didn't have to work overtime, he would almost always come home for dinner, which temporarily relieved Qin Lan's worries. About a month later, she even tentatively thought about introducing a girlfriend to her son. At that time, Zhu Heng was sitting on the sofa, scrolling through his phone without saying a word, and got up and went back to his room. After locking the door, he dialed a number. He asked, "What are you doing?" Ding Leki's gentle voice with a hint of smile came from the other end. "Helping out at my mom's store. Just got a new batch of goods." Zhu Heng's mood also improved. "Need any mail help?" "Not really." Ding Leki chuckled. "What about you? What are you doing?" "Thinking about you," he sighed. At that moment when he lay down on the bed, a sudden thought popped into his head. He said, "Leki, let's get married." After a brief moment of stunned silence, Ding Leki smiled bitterly. "You're kidding again. Eloping is more like it." A few days later, Ding Leki went to attend a high school reunion. The private room was lively, and everyone had had a bit to drink. It was getting late, and she missed him. Ding Leki sent a WeChat message to Zhu Heng. "Can you come pick me up?" As the party was about to end, a male classmate stopped Ding Leki, saying he had some money in his hand and was planning to invest in financial products, wanting her to give him some advice. Ding Leki sat back down in her seat. As the remaining few people left one by one, the male classmate kept pestering her with questions. When she tried to get up, the male classmate grabbed her wrist. She couldn't break free and had to force a smile. "Let go first. I'll calculate your returns for you." Ding Leki took out her phone, but the male classmate pressed down on her hand. He said, "I've heard about your situation. It's been the talk of the town in our circle. Even if you're a bastard child, so what? Did that young cop break up with you because of this? He cares. I don't care." Ding Leki's expression was blank. When he kept mentioning bastard child and young cop, she suddenly raised her hand and swept the two dishes in front of her away, splashing him with leftover soup and cold dishes. She jumped up and ran towards the door. As soon as Ding Leki opened the door, she bumped into Zhu Heng, who was about to come in. The male classmate behind her shook off the soup and cursed, but Zhu Heng punched him, and he shut up obediently. Later, Zhu Heng held Ding Leki's hand and walked out. There was a hint of blame in his tone. What kind of classmates are these? She followed him with steps, always a half step behind him, her eyes filled with unprecedented frustration and sadness. She said, "Yeah, it's all so disappointing. A mess everywhere." She broke free from his hand, squatted on the ground, holding her head and crying. She said, "I shouldn't have come today. I'm so embarrassed. But it's not like I wanted to be born. What's my fault? If I could choose, I'd rather not be born." Zhu Heng squatted beside her, not saying a word for a long time. Then he stood up, wrapped his arms around her. He held her close and walked forward. She sobbed softly, clinging to his neck. He whispered, "If you weren't born, what would I do? I don't want to pretend to break up with you. I miss you every day. It doesn't feel good. Leki, can we get married? I may not be able to give you a luxurious material life, but I won't let you feel sad or hurt. Do you believe me?" During their first spring festival after marriage, Zhu Heng and Ding Leki each went back to their respective parents' homes. That day, Zhu Heng happened to be busy and couldn't accompany her. Standing outside the courtyard steps, he adjusted her hat and scarf, saying, "I'll come pick you up early on the morning of the third day of the new year." Ding Leki nodded, with half of her face buried in the scarf, revealing only her smiling eyes. Her hand slipped into his sleeve, holding his wrist, and she whispered, "Don't argue with your parents when you get home. Be good." He smiled, touching his forehead to hers. "Got it. Touching heads means no worries or troubles." Ding Leki's relationship with her mother remained close, and it was even more understanding and caring than before. On New Year's Eve, Ding Li put a bank card in front of her daughter. She said, "This is from your dad. Since you were born, he has been depositing money into this card every year until you graduate from college. I haven't touched a penny of it. Originally, I planned to leave it to you as a dowry. Now I'm giving it to you. You can use it as you wish." I knew he was still alive. Ding Leki looked up. "Mom, who is he? Where is he? Consider him dead. Aren't we living more peacefully?" Ding Li smiled. "You have a mom. You have Zhu Heng. Don't dwell on the past. It's meaningless." Ding Leki tightly grasped the hard card, then slowly let go and placed it back in front of Ding Li. I don't want it. Mom, I've made you sad enough. I promise, I won't make you sad again in the future. Ding Li smiled again, stuffing the bank card into her daughter's pocket. We'll face whatever comes our way, and there will be many challenges ahead. As long as you don't regret it, Mom has nothing to be sad about. On the contrary, Mom feels sorry, couldn't give you the life of a normal family child. Ding Li got up, clearing the dishes from the table. Without looking up, she said, "Baby, rest assured, your birth was not immoral. When Mom had you, he was unmarried. I was unmarried. We were dating seriously for more than a year. Later, his boss appreciated him, and his boss's daughter also liked him. I went to stay at your grandma's house for a while. I was living in a daze every day, and when I found out about you, you were almost 3 months old. I couldn't abandon you, and I couldn't bear to hurt him, so I just pretended he was dead." Ding Li washed the dishes slowly, laughing as she spoke, tears streaming down her face. As for Qin Lan, we were classmates and friends for 6 years. Just for a job opportunity, how many connections did she make? How many bad things did she say about me? I had already received the job notice, but she managed to edge me out of it. We had a big fight back then, arguing all the way to the police station, and in the end, neither of us got the job. Ding Leqi looked at her mother and whispered after a long while, "Do you hate him? I mean, my father?" "No," Ding Li shook her head. "Maybe he hates me. I made him have a guilty conscience for a lifetime. Originally, I thought I could hide it from him for a lifetime, but at that time, your household registration couldn't be done. I had no choice, so I asked him for help." "Mom, do you think Zhu Heng is good?" "Silly child." Ding Li laughed. She dried her hands, patting her daughter's head. "Zhu Heng treats you sincerely. How could I not see that?" On the 3rd day of the new year, when Zhu Heng came to pick up Ding Leqi, as soon as the car stopped, he received her call, her voice loud and cheerful. "Honey, come upstairs quickly. Mom said we should have lunch before going back." Ding Leqi didn't expect Zhu Heng to be prepared. There were several boxes and bags in the trunk. Mom was also prepared. She handed him a large red envelope. Ding Leqi burst into tears at that moment. Ding Leqi said, "Life is like climbing a mountain. There's always a peak ahead." It was a morning with sunlight streaming through the window, and the scent of honeysuckle lingering in the air. Zhu Heng had just woken up, his voice slightly hoarse when he spoke, with a nasal tone. "Just climb the mountain. Can you move your leg off me? I've been carrying you all night." Ding Leqi chuckled as she got out of bed. "Okay, since I've conquered this peak, your body all ready?" He grabbed her pajamas. "Where are you going?" She pointed to the alarm clock on the bedside table. "I'm going to be late." In the blink of an eye, another peak appeared. Ding Leqi's usually punctual visitor had been delayed by a week. This unexpected turn of events made her uneasy for a couple of days, but she gradually felt relieved. At the same time, the challenges related to having a child began to need addressing. Ding Leqi's story was understood by Zhu Heng, and he had his own thoughts and plans. The next morning, when Ding Leqi woke up, Zhu Heng had already heated milk, boiled eggs, and peeled one for her, blowing on it to cool it down before placing it in front of her. He said, "I'm going to visit my dad today." "Why?" "I want to ask Dad for help. Let's buy a house first." He glanced at her, a slightly shy smile on his face. "We're fine as we are, but it might not be suitable if we have a baby. I've been feeling so confused these days. I don't know how to tell you." Ding Leqi's eyes were red when she raised her head again. "I'm a little scared. I've never seen my dad, and I don't even know who my grandparents are. From childhood to adulthood, I've known my own feelings of inferiority and hopes. You've fought with your family for me, been scolded by your mother, laughed at by acquaintances. I'm really afraid my child will be like me in the future." "What nonsense are you talking?" Zhu Heng exaggeratedly patted his chest, teasing her. "Dad is right here. Kids should be like you, smart, beautiful, and considerate. I like that." Sure enough, Ding Leqi smiled through her tears. She looked at him, gently shaking his hand. "If your dad doesn't agree, don't force it. We can buy a house ourselves. I have a way." He'll agree. He called a couple of days ago, asking if our old house gets cold in the winter. Zhu Heng reached out to touch her hair. My mom probably won't object anymore. We've been married for over a year. She's accepted the fact. And besides, Dad will handle her. She cares about face, has a stubborn temper, if she's willing to compromise. Ding Lecky didn't let him continue. She looked at him and smiled. I won't let you be embarrassed. Great. Zhu Heng was somewhat moved, his palm exerting some force as he rubbed her hair. My dear little Sisyphus, leave the stones to me to push. You just stand behind me, and you don't need to tell me stories tonight. Ding Lecky smiled, looking around the room. Actually, I quite like it here. I'll be reluctant to leave if we have to. And the child must love this big yard. But this isn't our home. Who says? She looked at him seriously. Wherever we are, that's the best home. Zhu Heng laughed, reaching out to pinch her cheek. Did you go to the hospital? I made an appointment for the day after tomorrow afternoon. I haven't prepared myself yet. Ding Lecky said, looking at him with a smile. Since I met you that day, it seems like I've accidentally kicked open one door after another. Zhu Heng laughed. What's behind the doors? Is it what you wanted? Ding Lecky playfully raised her eyebrows at him, finishing her glass of milk. She was about to get up when Zhu Heng stopped her, offering her a boiled egg. Here, eat this too. It had snowed lightly during the night, and as Ding Lecky stepped into the yard, Zhu Heng exclaimed, stopping her in her tracks. He was holding a big broom, swiftly clearing a path. She bent over with laughter. You're too much, aren't you? Zhu Heng tossed the broom away, clapping his hands. Why am I feeling a bit happy? He wasn't just feeling a bit happy. His happiness was overflowing. At 9 in the morning, he sent Ding Lecky a WeChat message. Lecky, are you hungry? Shall I order takeout for you? 20 minutes later, Ding Lecky replied, not hungry. Didn't you make me eat 2 eggs this morning? Forgot? At 11 in the morning, he sent her another WeChat message. What do you want for lunch? Shall I buy it and bring it to you? At 1:30 in the afternoon, he messaged her again. I've talked to my dad. I'll start filtering through the housing options first, and if there's anything suitable, I'll take you to see it. At 4 in the afternoon, he called her. Why aren't you answering me? Ding Lecky chuckled helplessly. I'm busy. Are you being annoying? At night, Zhu Heng was sleeping soundly when he vaguely felt his wife getting up to go to the bathroom. After a while, she hadn't returned, so he groggily got up and called out to her. Lecky. She responded. When she climbed back into bed, she whimpered softly like a little puppy. Nestling into his embrace, she murmured, There's no baby. Zhu Heng's mind was still not quite awake. What? Aunt Flo, she's late, but she's here. Now Zhu Heng was fully awake. He grabbed her ribs. You little trickster. You got me all excited for nothing. Ding Lecky continued to whimper, grumbling. I finally prepared myself mentally. Zhu Heng chuckled, kissing her cheek. Regretful? A little. That's simple. He nudged her forehead with his chin. Let's sleep, and in a couple of days, we'll try again. Honey, my stomach hurts. Honey will keep you warm. As he spoke, he reached out, as usual, placing his warm palm on her abdomen. It was almost dawn now, with cars honking in the distance, the wind swirling around the windowsill, sounds from a construction site, the pounding of pile drivers, the rumble of trucks unloading bricks, came from some direction.